The titanic partnership between Disney and Marvel Studios has yielded a series of interconnected comic book blockbusters that have taken summer and beyond by storm. They succeed mostly because they're big, crowd-pleasing, and long-time fan-pleasing movies that always leave you wanting just a little bit more. Yep, it's safe to say Marvel has the movie game on lock as of recently, but they're not content with just the big screen. Daredevil is the first of what will be multiple new shows the superhero juggernaut has its sights set on with the world of Netflix. And really, I can't think of a better hero to take the plunge on this newest venture than Daredevil. For those of you who don't know, Daredevil has been one of the most comic-ready crime fighters for the better part of 3 decades now, with a slew of excellent runs overseen by some of the very best writers in comics. They tried once before to bring him to life with the Ben Affleck movie, but you know what? The less said about that one, the better. The key in my mind to Daredevil's success, and the reason he's so damn interesting, is this idea that by day he's a blind lawyer, Matt Murdock, upholding the law, but by night he's a costume vigilante who dishes out his own brand of justice. And where the traditional law fails and vigilante justice succeeds is very much the ponderous backbone of this new show. As the series begins, Matt, played by Boardwalk Empire's Charlie Cox, and his partner, Foggy, played by Mighty Ducks' Eldon Henson, are setting up their law practice when they get sucked into a murder case involving Deborah Ann Wool's Karen Page. This seemingly cut-and-dry case, however, launched them into a much bigger conspiracy plot involving corruption and murder tied to the attempts to rebuild Hell's Kitchen post the alien invasion we saw in The Avengers. Yes, Daredevil is a down-and-dirty crime series, but make no mistake, this is still very much part of the established MCU, which makes it required viewing for anyone who needs to know everything. The big marching order of this series was, of course, to show a side of the Marvel Universe that we have not seen before in The Avengers or any other related movies. Yes, this is street level, no lasers, no shield, just threats too insidious for the cops, but too small time for the likes of Captain America or Iron Man. Also, Matt Murdock has something those guys didn't have, a secret identity. What I find most interesting about the Daredevil show is how it takes its time, sharing background info with the audience only as it becomes important. We see young Matt get blinded in the very first episode, but his training and even how he met his partner is saved for later down the line. It's a Netflix show that knows damn well people are going to be binge-watching it, so it takes its time. It very much feels like one big, long movie, but that added runtime means they're free to flesh out Hell's Kitchen in ways that not even Gotham could get fleshed out in a movie. We see how crime affects the city and the characters on multiple different levels. People have jokingly compared this show to The Wire, but you know what? They're not actually far off. Daredevil is also a show that spins a ton of plates in terms of style and tone. Case in point, Episode 3 is a straight-up Law & Order show. Episode 7 is a magical ninja quest with Scott Glenn as Matt's Mr. Miyagi-style Kung Fu master, Stick, who, in case you were wondering, Scott Glenn frickin' steals the show as Stick when he's on. He's just so much fun as a crusty old dude. All of this leaves each new episode feeling like a box of chocolates where you're never quite sure what kind of show you're going to be watching next. I enjoyed this, but I can understand how other people would find it taxing. Perhaps the thing that everyone can agree on is the show's main villain, Wilson Fisk, here played by the great Vincent D'Onofrio. The Kingpin feels like he jumped right off the pages of the comics. Sometimes he's a cold, calculating gang boss, other times he's a big, violent shell, but he's always just so damn engrossing to watch. This is why you get such a weird, off-beaten character actor like D'Onofrio in this role. The show is just as much about the Kingpin's rise to power and villainy as it is about Daredevil's rise to heroism. The show makes a point to constantly remind us how these men are both cut from the same cloth, and whole episodes revolve around him and his romance with Vanessa, the only woman who can pierce his tough outer shell. The Kingpin also just so happens to represent the forces of gentrification that want to tear down the Hell's Kitchen with personality that Matt and Foggy grew up in and replace it with something plastic and gaudy. What I'm saying is, move over Loki, I think we have a new fan-favorite sympathetic baddie. Now, a lot was made early on about how grim the show looked, and indeed, this is definitely one more for adults than it is kids, but it never loses that Marvel sense of charm, and the characters back and forth, especially the stuff with Foggy, is still very funny. The show even offers up more gallows humor than before as kind of a necessity. The action is also unlike anything we have yet to see comic book characters do on TV. The fights are bloody and chaotic, taking full advantage of being on Netflix. Daredevil has ninja moves, yeah, but for most of the season, he's just beating on dudes until they can't move anymore, sacrificing his own body in the process. It's not pretty, it's ugly, but in the best way possible. It's clear that a lot of inspiration was taken from Asian cinema, stuff like The Raid and Oldboy, which is fitting because Daredevil also keeps the Asian blind samurai Zatoichi flavoring that colored so much of Frank Miller's work on the hero, which no doubt informed a huge chunk of what the series was aiming for. Daredevil also boasts a lot of great behind-the-scene muscle too. Drew Goddard, of course, but what I was really happy to see is comic writers like Christos Gage involved in making Daredevil the sort of show that's littered with great shoutouts and references to the long history of the character. The music is another strong point, plenty of famous pop tunes and some nice theme work as well. Daredevil is a 13-episode ride that combines film noir, Asian mysticism, legal procedure, and Godfather-esque crime drama all into one big yummy superhero stew that ends up being greater than the sum of its many, many, many parts. This will certainly be another feather in Marvel's multimedia cap, and a show that might very well be able to bridge the gap between comic snobs and TV snobs in a way no show has really been able to do yet. If you couldn't tell, I give this one the big old stamp of recommendation.